That's probably one of my complaints in terms of like where I feel like the first movie probably did it a little bit better in terms of like the political scheming and the manipulation and stuff like that. I don't feel like he was probably given much to do in the movie, but again, it's like something what Daniel was saying earlier in the review, is that you kind of have to approach the movie for what it's trying to tell as opposed to what you want it to be.
Hello, everyone. Bonjour. Welcome back. This is the Eye of the Storm podcast. If you're new, hello. If you were here last week and the week before that, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed today's discussion. You should enjoy today's discussion because we're going to be reviewing. You know what? Let me say my opinion, but we're going to be reviewing Dune Chapter 2. But before we even get into the main discussion, oh my God, I forgot to introduce my boys, Hervé and Daniel.
How we do? You going solo? Beyonce on us.
Yeah, well, my bad. It's just this year. This one is gonna be an interesting one because remember what I said about doing the chapter one, how I didn't understand, even though it was a very good film, I didn't understand the hype behind it. So yeah, this is my opinion now. Is going to be, well, I think it's going to be interesting. But before we even get into that, guys, what's the best recent thing you watched?
I can go first, mainly because I don't have anything great, so we'll just get me out the way. Mine's more reality TV, and I know we don't really do reality TV here, but I've been watching Love is Blind, and Love is Blind is excellent. And for those that don't understand it, it's basically you have like boys and girls, whatever, they come in the show, they're trying to find love, and they have to communicate behind like a screen for a couple of weeks, essentially, so that they can get to know each other, kind of like build connections, this and the other, to truly figure out if love is blind. And the whole premise of it is that they have to propose to each other and get married within 4 weeks after coming out of the pod, basically. So they go from being in this pod where they're behind the wall, they're talking, getting to know each other, kind of falling in love, to then meeting in person, then having to live together, essentially, all in the build up of the wedding. And either they get married or they, and it's brilliant. I'm on season 6 is out now, and every time it comes out, I'm like, I'm probably done with this show. I watch it. It's great every single time.
And then when they find out what the other looks like, they have to pretend to not mind.
Exactly. Yeah. They have to pretend that they don't mind, or you know what? There are some reactions where it's very obvious that they do mind. So yeah, that's where it gets very interesting. That's where all like the drama starts and all the all the little interesting conflicts.
So mine is completely different. I watched Chernobyl, the HBO miniseries from a few years ago. I'd heard good things about it, and they all undersold how good the show is. It's 5 episodes, and I think I watched it in 2 sittings. And I was fascinated the entire time. It's incredible drama. It manages to be scientifically accurate, historically accurate, wherever possible. It's acted incredibly well. It has this incredible attention to detail. So it's essentially about the Chernobyl nuclear power plant disaster in '86, and about the lead scientist and the party official who are basically tasked with the cleanup. And everything from the accident itself all the way up to the court case where basically they find somebody to blame for the whole thing. That's basically covered in 5 episodes. And it's really gruesome. I know that kind of pulls its punches a little bit in portraying things like radiation sickness and stuff like that, but it's really, really gutting. Like anybody who ever says that you have to dumb down a story for the audience, or you have to cut corners, or you can't portray complex things because it will lose the audience or will bore the audience, just watch Chernobyl and tell me if you were bored. Where they talk about things like dosimetry and radioactive containment and things like that, because all of that techno babble exposition is really riveting, because it really manages to sell you on just how severe this crisis is and what it will take. Like there's an episode where in order to build the containment structure, they have to clear the roof of debris of the reactor. So when the reactor exploded, it spread debris across the surrounding buildings. And in order to do that, they get a state-of-the-art robot, like a German police robot from, this is like '86, right? And the radiation fries it in about 1 second. And it's the most advanced piece of technology that exists at that point. So they come up with a plan where they conscript hundreds and hundreds of people to work in 90-second shifts to clear the debris off that roof, because anything else will just outright kill them. And if they work for less than 90 seconds, they might survive. And that scene is from the point of view of one of those workers. And the only thing you hear is his breathing. and the Geiger counter that just goes absolutely crazy every time they get near the edge towards the open reactor that's spewing out this radiation. It's the most intense thing, and it's the most simple scene ever, and it's wonderful. Everybody should watch it.
I think you've sold me, because I've heard good things about it as well, but like you, I didn't watch it when it first came out, but I'll add it to my watch list for sure.
People kind of talk about it like it's something you're supposed to watch as a responsible adult, but no, it's actually one of the best dramas I've ever seen, and it manages to take its very complex and dry subject matter, and it just tells you what happened in the most intense way possible.
I think the only reason why I didn't end up watching it was because of the Chernobyl found footage horror movie. Because when I watched that, which I really liked, I saw that there was a series coming. I was like, oh, okay, this is gonna be good. Saw the series. I was like, oh, what the hell is this? What's going on?
I guarantee you, Chernobyl is like the HBO series is scarier.
Well, okay, hold on. I'm gonna have to check this out. I'm gonna have to check this out then. All right, cool. Because I saw it. Obviously, the IMDb rating was high as hell. Obviously, back in the day, IMDb ratings for me was a big thing, but now not so much. But yeah, so I was like, this must be good. But when I saw the trailer, I was like, oh, this doesn't look horror whatsoever. So yeah, but yeah, of course, I'm gonna check it out now. Cool. Thank you for pointing out. I'm gonna watch this. Wait, when does it start getting good? Does it? Would you say it gets good from after the first episode? Because I have a very low tolerance.
From about minute 2, I would say, and then it doesn't stop. Like there's a little bit of a ramp up because the accident happened like 1 a.m, and people wake up and they got a firefighter gets woken up and gets called in, and like the first 15 minutes are kind of like, because if you know what happened in Chernobyl, it's intense, but it's not like it's warming up for a little bit, but it wastes no time. There's no fat, there's no filler. You have to buy into the danger of it, right? You have to kind of follow along with what they explain to you, why this is dangerous and why what the consequences of not containing this disaster will be. And if you do that, then it's riveting the entire way through.
All right. Well, I'm definitely going to check that out. For something which I think you guys should check out. I don't know if I think you might like it. I freaking love this. I was so surprised, but it's on Netflix. It's called Wrong Side of the Tracks. I don't know if anyone's heard of that.
What's it about?
It's so basically a Spanish series. I think the actual one is on the actual Spanish Netflix website was called Entre Vias, I think, but obviously we've got the English one, so it's Wrong Side of the Tracks. Pretty much a Spanish war veteran goes against drug dealers that try and overtake their neighborhood pretty much, and also his granddaughter, Vietnamese granddaughter, so she's adopted by obviously his daughter, but his Vietnamese granddaughter ends up falling victim to them as well, and obviously what happened to her was so dread. But yeah, this series is, I've never laughed so much, but as well as be emotionally invested so much to the Netflix series. For me, this is definitely top 5 in my Netflix series of all time. I just found this amazing. Like the granddad, the war veteran, he is so funny, and he doesn't even mean to be. He's not one of them. It's not like one of those immature humor type. Because I don't think this is even a comedy. I think it's a drama, but it's more thrilling, gutsy, and yeah, it's just like a drama that has a lot of comedic humor in it, but not comedic humor that kind of overshadows the show, but like comedic humor that's executed at the right time, and is mainly from the granddad and his like friendship group. He's hilarious. Like, he's just a grumpy old man. He's a very grumpy old man that doesn't give a damn about nothing. Like he of course he cares, he cares about his family, but he's like one of those old men that's he's very hard. Do you know what I'm saying? So then he ends up softening up throughout the episodes. I think it's 3 seasons. First season has to be the dreadest one of all. Like, it was so sad what happened, and then the season 3. You guys should definitely watch it. Hopefully there's a season 4. I'm gonna check if you look for an update. But yeah, you guys have to watch this. It was so funny. The main event.
Dune Part 2. I've been waiting for this. You can see the excitement on me. Dune Part 2. Jonathan, take us away.
Guys, if you recall in my previous movie review, I said I didn't understand. Well, it wasn't even a movie review. It was our previous Monday topic. It was if Dune was a good adaptation. I said I didn't understand the hype behind Dune. I did feel like it was a very good film. I just didn't understand this whole masterpiece talk that people were giving. especially with Dune 2. When I've seen the reviews, oh, this is the best film ever made. I'm like, bro, like what the hell? Like I feel like a lot of people are just like bandwagoning it now. But finally watching it yesterday, Dune 2 is one. I think it might be the best, but I think it's one of the best top two best sci-fi films I've ever seen. If it's not number one, then it's definitely number two. I'm just trying to think of other sci-fi films that I love, but yeah, it was one of the best sci-fi films I've ever seen. That is the first time I've wanted to watch a movie twice. I've never wanted to watch a film twice. When I end up watching the film again, it's usually years later. After watching Dune, I was proven wrong. Honestly, this movie, I was proven wrong big time. And I understood what the hell people were talking about when they're saying this was a freaking masterpiece. This was unbelievable. From the visuals to the fight scenes to the freaking like one of my favorite, like I think the highlight moments for me was their slow motion scenes. Like the slow motion moments in this film was so iconic and freaking chilling, especially from Paul. When Paul, bro, oh my god, when he was walking in between the Fremens, and when he was I think which scene was it? Obviously when he was walking towards his.
Careful about spoilers.
Oh, sorry, spoilers. Okay, no, that's not really a spoiler, to be fair. So we're not in spoiler zone yet. But thank you, okay. But yeah, his slow motions, like the slow motion moments in this film, for me was the highlight moments of the whole freaking film. Also, another thing that I loved about this was you see fragments of the protagonist turning into an antagonist. It's like, wow, like this was freaking great. Like I honestly, bro, like when people like the beginning of the cinema, right? You got what's his name, Daniel something, where he said, "Hey, something, everyone be quiet, phones off." Now something about escape from reality. That's what it felt like watching this film. It was like an escape from reality. I wanted to be in this movie. That's how freaking bad it was. I imagined my own Fremen army behind me or an army behind me. I was like, bro. This movie was amazing. Like it was. I was so shocked because, yeah, it was amazing. I was lost for words. I was like, I've never watched this film felt like a film that came out, like in the 2000 eras or the 2010 era. Like it didn't feel like our generation, well, our century type of film. It really didn't. It felt like a film that, that what you would have expected to see 20 years ago or 10 years ago. It was amazing. I think this is probably the best sci-fi film I've ever seen. I'm just trying to think of sci-fi films I've seen. Hunger Games isn't really sci-fi, is it? It's mostly dystopian.
I'd call that science fiction,
yeah.
Hunger Games is a science fiction.
It is.
Damn. Okay, it's between Hunger Games and Dune.
This is better than Hunger Games.
For me, I don't know.
I like Hunger Games a lot. This is better.
For you guys, yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have to think about that. But for me, it's top two. It's Hunger Games and Dune. I don't know which one's first, but for me, I don't know. I'll think about that later. But yeah, sorry, that's my opinion. This was a freaking amazing, visually amazing. Like the instrumentals that the background music, instrumentals that they were using was so fitting, and like it was just emotionally evoking. Like honestly, bro, like you were watching this film and you were just glued to the freaking screen. It didn't feel like it was a 2-hour and 47-minute film. It went quick. I don't even want to say what Daniel said about this film being the film of the. So I'm gonna let Daniel say that, but
yeah. Let me go before Dan. Let me go. We'll say Dan.
I could talk for ages, but this movie was.
I am here trying to contain my excitement for this movie. I've already seen it twice. This movie is phenomenal. This is a phenomenal movie. It's not perfect, and I have small gripes with it, but this movie is. I can't believe what I watched. And when you're talking about coming out the cinema and wanting to watch it again, I watched it Saturday 11 a.m. I was ready to watch it Saturday 3 p.m. I was ready to go back into the cinema and watch that again. The visuals were outstanding. And like there's a moment in the third act, which we'll touch on in the spoiler section. My adrenaline went up and it did not come down for the rest of the
I know which one you're talking about.
Literally, I felt bad for anyone that I spoke to after that because I could not talk about anything other than Dune. It was so good. It was so, mate, I'm trying to contain my excitement here for this movie. It was sensational. Just even all of the performances and stuff like that. I was just like, Timothee Chalamet took Paul Atreides to a whole other level from what he did in the first movie. Like he completely elevated his game in this movie. There's like so many top performances in this. Like Stilgar in this movie was fantastic. He was great. He was probably like if it wasn't for Paul Atreides, he would have been my favorite character in this movie. He brought so much heart and so much laughs out of it as well. I don't know. This was just I can't wait to get to the spoiler section, but this was fucking wonderful, man. I swear to God, I'm trying to contain my excitement here.
I agree with you about Stilgar. It's not often that like a fundamentalist is sympathetic, right? You are with him the entire time.
Yeah,
in his zeal, in his like passion for the cause, right?
Yeah.
Normally that kind of I'm just saying. Normally that kind of character is kind of, if not outright the villain, at least like unsympathetic.
Mm-hmm.
And he really sold what it must feel like to have that level of conviction and euphoria.
And belief, yeah. Even in moments where there was like maybe like some wavering or whatever like that, and then it was reaffirmed, and he was just like so happy with it. It was just like, yeah, so great, man. So many great moments in there. And like you touched on the fight scenes, like the final fight scene, like seeing that twice. I can't wait to watch that again. I'm going to watch this movie again. That final fight scene when everything just goes quiet and it's just like excellent hand-to-hand combat. I was just, yeah. The
fact that they didn't add background music to that as well made it so much better. It was just pure silence. Everyone was just watching. I was like, oh my God. Sorry.
Even the line before the fight, "May thy knife chip and shatter." I was like, I'm so ready for this. Oh God, man.
The way he said sorry, I'm gonna say spoiler. No, but I want to say it. Sorry, carry on.
We'll go spoiler section. We'll go spoiler section on certain details. But basically, I love this movie. This is the best sci-fi movie I have seen. Period. This is like, again, like you were talking about, like wanting to live in this world. Like I was like so immersed. Like you just want, like honestly, this movie could have been 4 hours. And that's one of my literally one of my gripes is that it probably needed a longer runtime to like flesh out some of the other stories that they didn't really spend too much time on. But you could have given me 4 or 5 hours of this, and I would have happily sat there. Like this is a movie where I would take a director's cut. If like the director said, "Here's everything that we filmed, you can just sit and watch it," I would lap it all up, honestly.
I saw this movie twice in cinemas, Saturday and Monday, and I haven't done that since Lord of the Rings. I don't normally rewatch movies in cinemas. I usually like Jonathan said, like let some time pass, let my memory cool off a little bit so that it feels fresh again. This one, the minute I walked out of the first showing, I was planning when to book the next one. It's that good. So for me, Dune Part 2 is like the best bowl of soup you've ever eaten. It's delicious. It comes in a nice presentation. It's made from the best ingredients by the best chefs with passion and care. And then when you get to the bottom of it, there's a hair in it, and you don't care. And that hair is the ending. I have some problems with the ending, and I think it's not just me being a book purist, and I'm not really that. But it's not just about they did it differently than in the books. There's actually a real mistake, at least 1 to 2 mistakes, depending on how you count, that really dragged down the ending. Everything was pitch perfect. Like you said, that it's 2 hours, it's almost 3 hours, and it didn't feel like that. I was not bored at any point. Even the second viewing, I fully expected the second viewing to drag, and it didn't, because now I knew where everything was going and I picked up on little details. It's as flawless as a movie gets. And I think to the point where I think Part 1 is a prologue and Part 2 is the real movie. And I like Part 1 a lot.
I still love Part 1 though.
Yeah, but it's clearly that Part 1 was the practice round and Part 2 is the real story.
I was going to ask, because again, you're sort of the one, you're the only one here that's read the books, and a lot of like talk that I've seen online is like either people love the adaptation of it or people like didn't like it because of how it was adapted. Do you feel like what we were given kind of like was essentially a good adaptation? Did it like cover like the core themes of the book? Did it like portray the important messages? Because obviously there's going to be a lot of things that were cut out of the movie or sort of not brought sort of across from the book. But do you like, what's your opinions on that?
So I think it's important to judge movies on what they are and what they're trying to be, as opposed to what you would like them to be, right? There are a bunch of details, characters, subplots, events from the books that were cut, and I would have liked to see them. But I think the main thing that's really contentious is how it downplays the geopolitics of spice and the ecology of Arrakis and how that relates to the spice and how that relates to the politics. Because to me, that is one of the most important. It's not more important than the Messiah story, but it's a really important pillar of the story. And that was not entirely removed, but mostly removed. So, and that brings me So just before we get to that, one of the comparisons that I came up with in thinking about this movie is this is what Game of Thrones tried to do and failed. Because both A Song of Ice and Fire and Dune are book series that are viewed as largely unfilmable because they are so complex and detailed and sophisticated, and all the details matter so much that you cannot translate all of it to screen. No matter how many seasons you have, no matter how many movies you have, it just can't be done. And both of them took an aspect of the story and really leaned into that and cut everything else, basically. In the case of Dune, that's the Messiah story about how artificial prophecy and belief system that has been planted in Fremen society informs them and informs their thinking, and how Paul slots into that archetype largely against his will, but kind of deliberately by him, right? And how he's conflicted about those two ideas existing in his head at the same time. And in Game of Thrones, it was the war of the five kings. So all the feudal politicking and the war and stuff like that, and everything else like the magic and the White Walkers and all of that was minimized. And one of the things that killed Game of Thrones for me was that they didn't do that properly, right? They didn't think it through about what needed to be cut and what needed to be changed. And they cut things kind of half-heartedly, where a lot of screen time was still spent on things that didn't matter, given the new emphasis. This is everything with Bran's storyline and, Cersei just drinking wine on a balcony for 2 seasons. And that is basically what happens when you take this approach and it doesn't work because you don't think it through well enough. But Dune did it correctly for the most part. Dune basically said, okay, we can't put all of this on screen. So we're going to tell a story about how a person becomes a messiah and about how that changes him and about this whole dynamic. And everything else was minimized. And I think everything they cut, for the most part, they cut for good reasons. And everything they changed, they mostly changed for good reasons. There's one thing I don't really like, just as a matter of taste, and one thing but that really drags down the story. So the first thing that I don't really like is...
quickly, are we in the spoiler section now?
Yeah. I mean, I guess we're in spoilers now. So yes. One thing I don't particularly like is how they turn Chani into a warrior, because she isn't that in the books. And the reason for that is that it detracts from what is interesting about that character, which is that she is the only person who knows Paul the human, and everybody knows Muad'Dib the prophet. And she loves one and hates the other. And those things exist in her head at the same time, and that informs all her behavior and all the books in which she appears. And that is really interesting to me. And they have this in the story, right? But by making her, first of all, by making her a warrior, that kind of detracts from that and doesn't add very much, in my opinion. And the ending where she runs away into exile, I think also detracts from that. So I have some theories on why they did this. I mean, we can talk about that later on, but I think that was a mistake. I think it would have been a stronger story if they had this configuration between Irulan, Chani, and Paul, and that tension within them, and how that basically encapsulates the entire themes of the story. If they had kept that intact until the very end, I think that would have been stronger.
Do you feel that they're trying to set that up for the third movie?
Because I have a theory about this. So yeah. Chani appears in the second book, dies at the end of the second book, and her and Paul's children are the protagonists of the third book. What I think Denis Villeneuve is doing is he's sabotaging the franchise so that he can make Messiah, the second book, and then nobody else can make any Dune after him. That's my theory, because that is the main effect of removing Chani from the story. Mm-hmm. Right? And by having this irreconcilable rift between her and Paul.
But did he not say in like one of his lines, especially like after he kind of drunk the juice and kind of like had his vision opened up, one of his lines was like, she'll come to understand eventually.
He sees possible futures. He also has a vision where he and Chani are overseeing a massacre, and they both seem to be reluctant but on board with it. Mm-hmm. Right? And that is not that can't be harmonized with where Chani is at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
So that was a possible future that could have happened, but didn't. And there are other visions like this that are contradicted by something that happens later, and that was a possible future.
Yeah, I feel like as well, like some of his visions are not 100% accurate, but they do kind of like not come true, but come true in a different type of like context. For example, like the battle scene where he in the first movie he sees himself, but then in this movie it's kind of portrayed as like Chani, as like kind of like the person that is kind of replicating that scene from the first movie. So I feel like there is like still a possibility where she might still be there, because I don't think they're going to cut Zendaya's character. They're going to find a way to like include her in sort of the third movie, where like she will be there and she will have to eventually kind of be by his side, because otherwise she's had no other purpose sort of to the movie. She needs to be sort of in Paul's sort of kind of story essentially. So
the big thing is that where they left her off at the end of the movie is incompatible with what happens next for that character in the books. So what in whatever capacity she appears, it has to be completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to see how they go from here to having children together who will inherit the throne one day, and then you can't have the rest of the story. And I think that's on purpose. I think that really is him saying, I don't want anybody else. I want Dune to end when I'm done with it, and I don't want anybody else to ruin it.
Yeah.
And he did that kind of he basically put a bomb with a 1 movie timer on it, so that anybody who picks up like if this is as successful as we think it's going to be, and Messiah comes out and it also does well, the studio will want to keep going, but he's done with it. So on the one hand, he probably, like the Chinese character was probably made more important because that was probably a condition by the actress, would be my guess.
Probably, yeah.
And also the way he then did it was to preempt the story he doesn't want to adapt. That's my conspiracy theory. And if you watch this movie in 2030, you can tell me how wrong I am. Leave a comment below. And so that's the one thing where I like. It's not wrong exactly. Like Villeneuve is free to do this. I just don't see how it makes the story better. And then the thing that actually harms the movie is how the Holy War starts. And not only is it really rushed, where they go from winning a battle to going onto somebody else's spaceship and then flying off within about 5 seconds, but also Paul's whole gambit is that he can hold the spice hostage, right? We are told several times throughout the movie that he who controls the spice controls the universe. And also that to control something is equal to the ability to destroy it. Right, that is how he gets the Emperor to come to Arrakis to talk, and that is why he wins in the end. But then the great houses just don't see it that way. As far as they are concerned, they call his bluff, and they are right to call his bluff because he doesn't destroy the spice. He just sends out warships, which he could have done anyway. So to me, the entire story works because of how central the spice is to everything, and if you control the spice, you control everything else, and that is shown to be not true in the final scene, and that one I have a problem with. That one actually undermines the story.
I didn't pick that up, to be honest. I didn't pick that up. But
is in the Holy War chapter 3.
The Holy War kind of happens between book 1 and 2. So book 2 is kind of about the aftermath after the Holy War has happened.
Well, what did the mum say when she was talking to her baby at the end? Did she say
the Holy War, like, this is the start of the Holy War, essentially?
Yeah. So the idea is basically the Emperor has surrendered, and he's marrying Irulan to become Emperor. So Paul is marrying Irulan to become Emperor, and the other great houses refuse to accept his authority, and that is why the Holy War happens. That is why the Fremen go out into the rest of the universe and subjugate everybody who doesn't submit. Right. That's what basically happens.
But that's chapter 3.
Yeah.
Right, but it starts at the end of part 2.
Yeah. So how does that?
Basically, they say, Muad'Dib, we await your command, and he says, show them paradise. And then they walk into the spaceships and just fly off. So that happens because the great houses don't accept his ultimatum, and because they don't accept the ultimatum, that shows that his whole plan of blackmailing the galaxy because he controls the spice it does not work. It's not true. And that one I have a problem with. And it didn't have to be this way, right? Like, it could have very much been, like, the way it's supposed to happen is that the Holy War happens because Paul is no longer in control of the Muad'Dib persona, right? Like, with the Fremen put in a position of authority, become the oppressors that they previously fought against. That is the tragedy of the Fremen.
Mm-hmm.
And this happens in about 5 seconds here. And I don't understand why. They could have had, like, shown a few scenes of what happens over the next few weeks. And, you know, there are good and bad ways of doing this. My point is just saying that holding the spice hostage doesn't work because 0 of the great houses surrender in that moment. Mm-hmm. That undermines the story and what it's supposed to be. Maybe that is my one big complaint about the movie. Maybe
it was played out like that because obviously the director's not going to be after part 3 is going.
Yeah, but that's the whole, like, the reason the showdown happens is because he sends a message to the Emperor saying, I've got nukes pointed at the spice, let's talk.
Yeah.
And the most powerful person in the galaxy has to obey his command because he controls the spies. That's the whole point. That's why this is all happening. And that is why Arrakis is important. And this is Paul's entire plan. And this is why he and the Fremen together were the only configuration that could have led to this outcome. And it all comes down to control of the spies. Like Arrakis is not just some planet. It's the only place where the only resource that the entire, like all of society, like imagine if there was one country in the Middle East that had oil and nobody else in the world had oil. That's what this is. And somebody had a match in the hand and say, hey, I'm going to destroy all the oil fields unless you give me what I want. That's basically what's happening. But the events of the final scene undermine that completely. And it's not even a matter of it being an adaptation, because throughout the movie, they constantly tell us to destroy a thing is to have power over it. Right? It's the first line, even before the opening sequence, where we hear this throat singing kind of thing that says that, right? And that sentiment is repeated 3 or 4 times in the movie. It's made very clear. It's one of the things you're supposed to pick up. And then they don't do it. Then they do the opposite. And I don't know why. Like with Chani, I understand why they did it, right? The way the book ended 60 years later, it's not like they had to change it in order to be accepted by audiences. Because Chani essentially becomes the emperor's concubine, as far as the history books are concerned. And that was just not going to fly, right? That was not going to happen. So I understand why they did that. I don't understand why they changed, why the black male scenario doesn't work, because that is the exact opposite of what should be happening in any version of the story. I don't want you to drag this whole thing down. I thought I'd get my complaint out of the way. Because I think that like everything else is taste, right? Like we can talk about other things that I also didn't love, but this is the one that really is a problem with the story.
For me, funny enough, I think the showdown was a problem for me. Now, don't get me wrong. The fight scene in that was amazing, but I think more could have been at stake if the villain had a story. What I mean by that, okay, there was a lot of antagonists in the film, but I'm talking about Bold Elvis, the Paul's cousin. What's his name?
Fade Rather.
Yes, him. With him, his story felt undercooked because he was just introduced to us as this evil guy, right? And he had a scene here and there where he showed his evilness. So it was like his fear factor level was growing, but it just felt undercooked. So then when it came to the actual showdown, it felt a bit underwhelming because it was like, we've seen Paul's story. So we've seen how Paul has kind of like transformed into this guy where, like I said, he's shown fragments of him turning into protagonist, especially after he drinks the poison. It was like when he woke up, the mood just shifted. I was like, yo, I can like feel something in this guy that's changed from the Paul that we've seen all along till this point. So with Paul, a lot was at stake. I think, but obviously with like I said, with his cousin, I forgot his name again, Bold Elvis, with him, it was like, he's scary and we've seen scenes where he's threatening. I'm not saying his story should have been long, but he felt like his story was missing. So that's why when it came to the actual showdown, it just didn't feel like much was at stake. If you know what I'm saying? So, but the showdown was, like I said, it was unbelievable. Like the fight scene, the way that the music cut out and it was just like everyone was just in a quiet room and watching them fight, it was amazing. That was amazing. It just felt like, it didn't feel as tense, as intense as I wanted it to feel like, as if, like, it just didn't feel as intense because I just felt the antagonist story was missing.
I agree with you. I feel like the way he was introduced in the movie was done really well. You can kind of see he's a little bit of a sicko. He's a little bit sort of kind of psychotic. He's very sadistic. You could just tell, like, even for the Harkonnens, he's like a little bit more of an extreme version. And obviously, you have the scene where he makes his brother Robin, I believe is his name. He makes his brother like kiss his boot and stuff like that as well, and how like ruthless he is when he like kills the woman servants that he had. But I have to agree, like they probably, this is what I was saying at the start of the review, where they probably could have added another 15 minutes, and I feel like audiences would have been on board with it, where they like fleshed out a few of these characters which were kind of like a little bit undercooked. So even like the conflict between Galen, I believe is his character, and Robin, where you have the line from Galen where he says, he gave me this scar on my face, and I believe he says he's something about like him killing his family and stuff like that. With Gurney, sorry, yeah, with Gurney. So you have that conflict, which is kind of like in the background where they've like set up that there is some type of history behind it, but it's not really like fully fleshed out, and you don't really like know too much about it. So there are a few pockets of characters here and there where they probably could have done with just a few extra scenes. Like it didn't need to be too much, just to add a little bit of weight to the character. Because like,
Yeah.
I do agree with you. Like it does feel like, and like I think, Daniel, you were mentioning it maybe in the previous video, where Fade is meant to be like kind of like the opposite to what Paul is. He's like kind of like his foil essentially, where he's trained by the Bene Gesserit as well. He's meant to have like be seeing visions and stuff like that as well. He's meant to be like kind of like the anti the anti Paul.
He's not trained by the Bene Gesserit, but he is also the heir to a big house. He's also part of the Kwisatz Haderach breeding program. He was supposed to marry Leto's and Jessica's daughter to produce the Kwisatz Haderach, I think, if it wasn't Raban. But like they're part of the same system.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah, so they're part of the same system essentially. And yeah, I just feel like they just probably could have done slightly more with this character.
I liked it a lot better on the second watch because I thought the same thing as the two of you did the first time I watched it, and in the second one I picked up a bunch of details. So Fade Ratha's arc, like he doesn't really have an arc, but his deal is kind of implied. So for example, a really important one is when the Reverend Mother and Jessica have this psychic communion, where Jessica gloats to her, saying, "Hey, you should have picked a different side," and the Reverend Mother says, "You of all people should know that there are no sides in this." Meaning, whoever wins, the Bene Gesserit win. Right? Either way, they get somebody who is within an inch of being the Kwisatz Haderach on the throne.
Yeah.
But how does that kind of like aid? Like, how does that aid his story though? Because I think the thing that was missing was the story.
It's not his story. The story is about the Bene Gesserit's plan. And the Bene Gesserit's plan is such that whoever wins the fight, they win. So they have been, not only is Fade Ratha part of the breeding program and a result of it, he's also being controlled by the Bene Gesserit, right? Through Lady Fenring. He's also part of the Baron's plan for putting him on the throne, independently of that.
Yeah.
Right. So he is basically, he thinks he's the hero of his own story, but actually he's a pawn in at least two different people's plans in a way that he doesn't even understand. Like that is his story. It's not a story about a hero, or it's not even a story about of a villain. It's the story of somebody who is the villain, who thinks he's the hero, but actually he's a pawn in somebody else's scheme.
That makes sense.
And that's actually a good observation, and I actually can agree with you, but it still doesn't kind of like negate from what I was saying in terms about the stake, because I think is what, like I'm saying, for the the showdown, the stake for me being so, like, it wasn't so low, but it wasn't as high as I wanted it to be because of the reason that
it's not personal between Fade Ratha and Paul, right? Fade Ratha is just a speed bump he's the end boss you have to win to get to the cutscene, but the reason he is in that position is what is interesting and important about Fade Ratha. He himself is nobody. He's just some guy who is completely, like, if he dies, they have other prospects, as the Reverend Mother says at one point, right? Like, if Fade Ratha fails, if Paul fails, we have other options, right? That's not important. What's important is the bloodline. And the bloodline has already been continued through the Bene Gesserit, and the Bene Gesserit don't actually care who wins the fights. So that's kind of part of the joke of the whole story, that no matter what, like this entire hero's journey is not only undermined by the complexities of hero worship and following a charismatic leader and all of that, but it's also a farce because they are just, all of that is just a sideshow to the real plan that's happening in the background. And the pieces don't even know that they're part of a game in most cases. Paul probably does now, but Fade Ratha certainly doesn't. And that's the difference between them, or one of the differences.
That makes it more interesting. I think that makes it more interesting, like seeing it from that perspective and understanding him as a pawn above anything else.
I mean, I agree, as a villain, when I watched it for the first time, I thought he was the villain, or approached him as the villain, and he's kind of underwhelming as that, right? Like, yeah, okay, he is crazy and he's hyper violent and brutal and all of that, but that's kind of it. But then I realized that he's not the villain, that Bene Gesserit are, and he's just, he's just, a weapon they're using.
Yeah,
and that's much more interesting, I think. And I'm really happy that the movie did this. They didn't have to. They could have simplified it a lot more, and that is one of the things that's carried into the movie, and I'm really glad it did.
And I think that's like you made a very good point. I think with this film as well, it's like it just feels like a puzzle, and we're actually seeing the puzzles like fall in place. Even though I didn't get the point that you said at first, but now that you mentioned, I was like, oh crap, okay, it makes sense. At least I was just bored. I'm like, okay, that kind of changes what I'm feeling. So it feels like as you're saying, I think this movie is an actual puzzle, and I'm actually seeing the pieces coming together. Now I was like, well, how many pieces would you say were quarter of the puzzle has been completed, or half? Because this is going to be part 3 next. Is there how many like novels is there?
Well, like there's kind of 6 novels that the original author wrote.
How much of the novels did the movies cover?
The first book.
Just the first?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like the novels are weird. Like they get quite esoteric and they get kind of trippy. And I kind of want them to keep going all the way because there's some really interesting ideas in there that are buried in some not so great books, in my opinion. But the ideas are amazing. Part of me wants Villeneuve to stop at Messiah because that's what he wants to do. And him spending the next 20 years adapting books he doesn't want to adapt doesn't seem like it would help anybody. At the same time, giving this to somebody else has to make it worse. And I don't really trust, like if this turns into a big multi-billion-dollar franchise, I don't trust the studios to maintain the quality control that has been on display here. So I'm conflicted about, like, in a perfect world, I would want adaptations of this quality level of all 6 books. Even if they're quite different and even if they're a very specific take on it, but we just get 2 books and a complete trilogy that tells one story and makes a point, then I'm happy with that.
Any positives? Because I feel like
I focus on the 2% right now that I didn't care for.
Yeah.
Everything else is wonderful. Like I love how alien it looks. Like I have a couple of more complaints. Like I think the Emperor is lame. Like he's just a senile old man who I don't believe has been holding on to power for over 100 years and was behind the conspiracy in part 1 to destroy the Atreides. Like he needs to have basic principles of politics explained to him by his daughter at one point. It's ridiculous.
But trying to portray him as like a pawn as well, though. Because the way
So he's not fully, like, he thinks he's fully in control, but he also isn't because there are like hidden forces and so on. But just on a basic level of doing his job, he's really underwhelming. At least every time I saw him, every time he actually talks about power and about politics and about ruling, he comes across as a complete idiot and amateur.
I thought they were trying to do that because he came across very fragile. I said to myself, okay, this guy's coming across, like I said, fragile. But at the same time, the way that the mother was, talking to his daughter, what's his daughter's name again? The one that Paul takes her hand. Yeah, it was like this guy is just there. He's like a pawn. So so I think that was their intention.
But you should think he's in charge. And
act like it. But there were times where he did feel like he was in charge. The way that with certain lines, you know what I'm saying? So,
but like just an example, right? There's a scene. I think they're in a garden or something, and he's talking to he's basically testing Irulan, right? Like, what would you do in this situation if you were Empress? And it's not a case of he knows what the answer is and he's testing her. She gives the answer, and then when he disagrees, she corrects him. Like, it doesn't sound like the guy has ever, spent a minute on statecraft whatsoever.
But could this also be the complacency of being in charge for so long, because he's probably been emperor for so long? You can see how like everyone's fallen in line for the most part, all the different houses and whatever, where it's just like stuff like this doesn't really even happen on his watch anymore. So he's kind of just a bit nonchalant, or like kind of forgotten how to sort of deal with
but it didn't really come across as somebody who used to be great and has become old or something.
Yeah,
he just seems like he shouldn't be there. Like I don't understand why he's there. And why wasn't he overthrown 50 years ago?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I agree.
I agree.
I just think that his performance was conveying to us that he was never in control, and the person that was really in control the whole time.
He is in fact the most powerful individual.
No, he was in control, but he wasn't in control. So, for example, you know how a lot of people say the president of the United States isn't really the most powerful person alive? Like he's just a puppet. Yeah, that's what I thought they were trying to do with, obviously,
it doesn't really impact the story all that much. It's more like, would have been nicer if he seemed competent and he's just being like, I think the Bene Gesserit would be more impressive if he was really competent and ruthless and they were still outsmarting him. Here it doesn't seem like an accomplishment to outsmart the Emperor. right? And that kind of made me kind of sit through those scenes, and they weren't as compelling. For example,
Question:
I don't think it's necessary at all.
Question: How did you guys feel about Paul's granddad? I forgot his name. I forgot. And listen, guys, one thing you need to know about me is I always forget character names. Doesn't matter how many times I watch the movie, I'll just forget. So, but I do remember the relations. You know, I do remember the relations. So, how do you guys feel about how Paul's granddad came to his demise?
I was gonna say it probably wasn't the most satisfying ending, but again,
not necessarily ending. Sorry, let me clarify but the way that he was presented in this film, because in the first film he was like
authoritative. So that's probably one of my complaints in terms of like where I feel like the first movie probably did it a little bit better in terms of like the political scheming and the manipulation and stuff like that. I don't feel like he was probably given much to do in the movie, but again, it's like something what Daniel was saying earlier in the review, is that you kind of have to approach the movie for what it's trying to tell as opposed to what you want it to be. So as much as I enjoyed a lot of like the political games that were being played in the first movie and probably wanted to see a little bit more of that, so when he's talking about putting his nephew on the throne as the emperor and stuff like that, wanting to try and actually understand what his plan was for that and like what how he was maybe even trying to go about that, or even like them trying to like present some type of understanding as to how he was going to achieve that would have been interesting.
Yeah.
Here, I don't know, he just doesn't have much to work with. And again, this is where the movie could have been probably a little bit longer, where they could have like fleshed out a little bit more of like what his plan was for like his nephew and for overthrowing the emperor. Because there is that one thing where he tries to hold over like the emperor, where he's like like mentioning to the other great houses exactly what happened in like the emperor's involvement in the demise of the Atreides family. But again, it's not handled the best. But and again, I don't want to be on here complaining because I love this movie. But yeah,
but it would be even better if stuff like that was a little bit more fleshed out.
Yeah.
And in general, so first of all, to answer your question, I think one thing I really loved about that scene is how mythic Paul appears.
Yeah.
No, it feels like a legend.
Yeah.
Right? When he walks into the hallway and he just walks past. Now, in the first movie, a Sardaukar showing up was bad news. Here, there's like 20 of them, and Paul ignores them and just tells his guys to arrest them. Right? So that already is a different level. But the way he's shot and framed and the way people look at him, it's like when he walks up the steps, kills the Baron and then looks at the Emperor. He's framed like somebody out of a fantasy epic or something, right? He's not a person at that point anymore. He is more deep.
That scene was amazing. Sorry, I should clarify what I meant. In terms, I mean like how he was presented in this film. That scene was amazing. I agreed. Even even before he killed him, said something about grandfather. Like with the line that he said to him is like, what did he say again? Something about he said, nice to see you, grandfather, or something like that. What did he say?
I can't remember the line exactly.
Something with grandfather, and then the way he just stabbed him, that was amazing. Especially like I said, the slow motion when he walks into that location was amazing.
You die like an animal.
Yeah, I think it was along those lines.
Grandfather, you die like an animal. But just the insertion of grandfather, that was amazing. The way he just looks at him as well, he doesn't even see his face. That was amazing. So I agree. I should have clarified. I meant in terms of how he was portrayed in this film in comparison to the first one. So that's why.
Overall, I think the Harkonnen are underwhelming because this is a universe in which statecraft and manipulating entire populations is down to a science, right? I really enjoyed those scenes where Irulan talks with the Reverend Mother, and they are they are talking like they are, I don't know, like working on a spreadsheet for procurement or something when they're actually talking about the faith of billions. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Irulan is a product of the Bene Gesserit, and she has fully internalized this way of thinking and of manipulating these big forces to bring certain events into motion, and what factor will produce what effect and all of those things. That was really interesting, and it's this that's one of the things that always has appealed to people about Dune, that this is a world in which that level of thinking is very sophisticated and very high level. And what was missing from the Harkonnen, in my opinion, was a theory of statecraft. Because they're all about sadism and exploiting people and squeezing, right? but we never see that work. Not really. Like with the Atreides, they have this very cynical approach to benevolence, right? Where they do positive things because ultimately it benefits them, and then have a propaganda department to inform people why they should love them. Right? It's a really messed up way of being a benevolent dictator, right? But there's a sophistication behind it, and a theory and a method, and that is missing entirely from the Harkonnen. There's no. I don't see how being that cruel would work in the long run, and why they are in power and why they think that's the right way to go.
Ruling with fear.
Yeah, but it's not just fear. I lost track of how many of their subordinates they killed just because. Right? Don't they run out of people at some point? Right? And it's not even just punishing failure. I understand that, but it's more like it just seems to be random cruelty, as opposed to a plan, or this has worked for them for centuries, and this is what has kept them in power. And as reprehensible as it is, you can see why somebody would pick that strategy. That was missing entirely. But everybody else has it in the story, right? The Atreides have it, the Bene Gesserit have it, the Fremen have it. They all have a method to what they're doing and why they're doing it, and a track record to prove why it's a good idea. And the Harkonnen are the one exception. And there's a limit to how much of that is in the books as well, but that really stood out here because all these scenes where they are dealing with losing spies, like missing their quotas and everything because of the sabotage from the Fremen, there was just no idea of what they was we saw them being in charge, but we didn't really see what that means, and that was a little bit underwhelming, especially since at least 4 scenes where this happens, and that would have been nice. So we've talked a lot about negatives for a movie that we all agree is wonderful, right? So what's your favorite scene?
Oh, that's the next question was going to be the highlights. Okay, who wants to go first? I want to go first, but I will be selfish.
Can I go?
Yeah, you can go.
I think you've touched on the scene when he's walking through the Fremen in this sort of the council where they've got the elders where only sort of the leaders are able to speak. But
that scene was amazing. And what's crazy is right after he drinks the poison as well. It was just that scene just fits. Sorry, carry on.
Go. When I was talking earlier in the review about where the adrenaline kicked in and it didn't drop from there, I swear to God, when he started speaking with conviction, I was like, okay, we are here. He's arrived. It was just, you just felt it. It was just chilling. I don't know. It was just.
When he says, "Who here will challenge me?" and 10,000 people draw their knives.
Yeah. and literally doesn't even flinch at all. He just looks at the guy straight and tells him about his whole backstory and his grandma and this and the other, and he's like, I am the Messiah, I am the guy, I have arrived, and this is what we're doing. And it was just brilliant. Another highlight, because I didn't expect it, was when he said to Chani, "As long as I'm breathing, I will always love you." And the fact that he'd said it twice in the movie. I think he said it once when they were sleeping with each other, whatever, that they were in love. Said it was cute. But the second time he said it, after they've taken over the Emperor, you just feel the chill behind it. You could just feel
he was saying goodbye to her, right?
Exactly, because it made sense. It was at the end, okay, that's why he said it the second time.
Yeah, and you could literally feel that something's not right here. And in the very next scene, he's to the Emperor, without hesitation, with the conviction of a true villain, said to the Emperor, "I will take your daughter's hand in marriage," and didn't even look back, didn't even flinch. I was again, because I didn't expect it, with these movies, falls in love with the Fremen, they go off, live a happy life or whatever that, and she's all on board or whatever that. But that gut punch was damn. I was damn, in the movie. But yeah, anyways, you guys can go on about your highlights.
And you know what? The reason why, for me, if you guys don't know, the speech to the Fremen after drinking the poison when he's in that little tomb place, the reason why that for me was amazing. One of the best scenes I've ever seen actually, let me just keep it sci-fi in general. I think the reason why that scene felt so much better was because I think with Paul, the actor, what's the actor's name, sorry?
Timothee Chalamet.
I think what he executed so well in this movie was his transitioning in his transitioning, especially with his moods. Remember the scene when he was having with his mother when he shouted at her, I think, because she said when it was him, the mother, and the baby that were all having a conversation with her, with her.
Oh
Hilarious
yeah,
and
they're
amazingly done, by
going
the way.
south. Yeah.
And then he was like, your sister's asking why don't you want to accept who you are, blah blah blah. And then there was a scene where he just out of the blue, just like because we've seen moments where he he rages, but the
Yeah.
way that he just does it is just so unexpected and so it's just chilling because he has such a calm demeanor and a very like loving demeanor, which you soon see not fading away but turning into like I said, he's slowly turning into an antagonist, especially the scene where I forgot where he sees what was it? The machinery, the bombs where the guy I don't know if it was his trainer. Yeah, and he showed him like the missiles and stuff. Like the way he looked at the way he was looking at obviously the firepower that he had, that's why I felt like okay, the slight change is slowly being introduced. You know what I'm saying? So like I think that scene as well, the scene when you're shouting at Furman, the fact that what's her name, Chani?
Yeah.
Even she stood up like she was gonna do him something, like she wanted to take out her blade. I was like, oh no, that speech was, bro, the best speech I've ever seen. Like I was reenacting that in my head. I'm telling you, I was like, bro, the way everyone just pulled out their knives, and oh my god, he was the step to me. I'm thinking, no, sorry, that was the best scene I've ever seen. That was the best scene in sci-fi.
And then one by one, they are won over.
Yeah.
Not only does he refuse to follow, like he openly defies them, right? He doesn't have standing. Stilgar begs him to kill him so that he has standing, so that he can save them, right? And he just says, no, I'm beyond that now. I make the rules now. Deal with it.
And that shows the conflict as well, because obviously he wants him to kill him, but obviously that's when he's pretty much saying no as well, which is like his good side. But now he's, claiming that power, which he says he doesn't really want. He just wants to, be a part of the Fremen and, what he's promised to Chani, Zendaya, whatever her name is. But yeah, so it was like, okay, so now we're seeing that antagonist side as well as the protagonist side, which makes me so much excited because it's such a great setup for Dune Part 3, because it's like, okay, what are we going to see him? Oh, there's going to be conflict. I'm sure there's going to be conflict. Obviously, I haven't read the novels, but I'm sure there's going to be conflict within himself. So I'm just like interested to see how his story plays out.
For me, really, this is a movie with lots of great performances, right? And Paul, I think, has this really. I was really a little bit concerned about how they were going to do that gradual transition of him refusing the call to accepting it, to realizing he's lost control, right? So that entire arc is done really, really well. But one thing that really stood out to me was Gurney, because there is a sequence of shots during the time where Gurney is with the Fremen, where the identities of Lord Atreides and Muad'Dib are merging.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, Paul gives Gurney an order, and Gurney says, "Yes, my lord," and he says it in the same inflection as the Fremen. Right, and at that point, it starts to merge, right? And there's like 3 or 4 steps where they start out as 2 completely separate things to the point where they don't like each other and they have nothing in common, and the only thing they have in common is Paul. But slowly, one step at a time, they become the same thing. Mm-hmm. And then there's a scene in that council scene where Gurney becomes a convert, and he realizes what's going on, and he realizes that like he becomes a believer. And there's a shot where Gurney's in the background and Chani is in the foreground. And Chani looks at Gurney, and Gurney has a religious moment. And then she looks back at the camera and she has just terror on her face. Because she realizes that if an off-worlder like this, he was not one of us, who doesn't believe in our religion, if he converts, then it's over. Then I've lost. And then Paul is gone too, and he's become more deep. That is like, I had actual chills when I saw that scene, because it's very short. It's like 1 second, it's one look, there's no dialogue. And this is when Villeneuve is on record saying movies shouldn't have dialogue because it's lame. And there's a bunch of these performances that are just facial expressions and that are informed by what you know about these characters and what came before in the movie. And Gurney becoming a convert without even realizing it, and Chani being terrified by it. That's wonderful. That was if I had to pick like one shot, that's it. Like, forget the sandworms. Chani being afraid of Gurney like, or what of or not of Gurney, but of the power of Paul over somebody like Gurney. It's wonderful.
And that's one I missed. That's one that I missed.
I
Because like what I thought was, do you know when like Paul puts on like his father's ring and like
Same deal, yeah. It's like I'm the Messiah and I am
like
Lord Atreides. It's the same thing. Yeah.
Like obviously you've watched it twice, Daniel, in it, and I don't know whether I'm like picking up on the wrong things or whatever like that, but it feels like in sort of Paul Atreides.
Sorry, there's a fox outside my window. It's very distracting.
No, it's fine.
If you've ever heard a fox, they scream like small children.
Yeah.
And it's very distracting. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's fine. It feels like they were kind of like setting up the sort of internal conflict of him like from the very like start of the movie, essentially, when, you know, there's like dialogue where he's like to his mother, obviously like, you know, about like the believers and the non-believers and having to like, if they're going to be able to like, you know, do anything, they're going to have to like convert the non-believers. Like that's him identifying with like the Atreides side of him and like wanting to like sort of exact revenge for his father and stuff like that. And then obviously over time he starts to like kind of like, you know, find himself immersed in the Fremen culture and stuff like that. But then he's still slightly manipulating. Again, like I think I don't know if we touched on this review or like a different one where like he pretends to not know what Muad'Dib is or what Muad'Dib means, but he's like still like almost like manipulating the Fremen to like be on his side, to like kind of like welcome him and accept him into like their sort of, you know, into their way of thinking. And I feel like ultimately he did probably want to be Fremen and like eventually like, you know, falling in love with Chani and stuff like that, have that care and whatever like that. But after seeing the Harkonnen bomb the siege and stuff like that, that hatred that he's probably still had towards them, he just like was like, okay, I'm gonna have to follow through with this like this vision that I'm seeing of me becoming the Messiah in the Holy War and stuff like that. I'm gonna have to follow through because we're gonna have to destroy the Harkonnen essentially. I don't know if I'm like reading some of the like small things that they were putting in there wrong. I know you're like super analytical on this stuff.
I had a slightly different read of that scene.
Yeah.
I think that scene where the siege is bombed and they have to go south, that's where he's still saying, I can't go south, you go without me, you know, I can't retreat. But that is kind of him being desperate and looking for any way out, right? That's a point where he still doesn't want to be the Messiah, but he realizes that one by one, all his options are being taken away.
Yeah.
He doesn't accept this because he just has a change of heart. He goes along with it because he realizes that he doesn't have any agency in history. Like that there are bigger forces at play that prevent him from choosing his own path. And that he has not, like previously he has been looking for any other alternative to fulfilling the prophecy, and he's been procrastinating essentially. But that is the point where it was down to one option, which is stay in the north and harass the Harkonnen until they leave. And that is taken away with the destruction of the siege, because now they have to go south, and if they go south, he has to become the Messiah.
But then he goes willingly as well, because he could have gone to the south and not become the Messiah.
Yeah, because he realized that there's only one way.
Yeah.
Like, at that point, I might as well do it, kind of thing. He doesn't want to do it at that point. He realizes he has to, and he has no choice. And everything after that is somebody who realizes, well, I have to, like, this is something I have to do. Otherwise, the alternative is to do nothing. And that's the only possible way forward. Which I actually really liked, because it's not like he just has a change of heart at some point in the movie because we're running out of, like the movie is at a certain percentage of its runtime, and now he has to go south. It's actually like the movie systematically takes away his alternatives, one by one. And that is the point where the last one was taken away, and at that point he realizes there's no other way, which I think makes it more interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Man, I don't know what else there is to say, you know.
I mean, the black and white scene on, is it the Harkonnen planet? That looked amazing. That was visually stunning. That was like the fighter's pit and stuff like that was just, that was great.
A little bit of foreshadowing here, because that was on sand as well, but it was artificial sand and completely controlled and not real. And then he gets sent into the real desert where he has no control. There's just a little small detail that I really liked. Like there's like a scene where he walks on sand, and everything about it is fake. But then we know that a couple of scenes later he will be in the real desert, where he no longer has the ability to create this theater where he can fight against people who have been drugged and given weapons that don't work and whatever else. That was a really neat little detail.
I know what it's, because I feel like by saying this, you know, I'm gonna shoot me down, but should we go to last thoughts?
Well, there's more to talk about, right? Like, can we talk about Jessica?
Okay,
Yeah.
yes, let's
So
go. Let's go.
this might be a little bit longer review than.
Alright, cool. Let's go.
Look, we get these once a decade, okay? We can go a bit long today.
Alright, cool. What you gonna say about Jessica?
I just loved everything about her. Like, she's not actually a hero, but she is kind of the villain of the story.
Mm.
Like she's using Paul as a tool, right? But she does it because she loves him and she wants him to succeed. But in order to do that, he has to become a pawn. And she does ruthless things in order to do the right thing. Like there's a lot going on there, I think.
The whole her speaking to her
The
daughter
baby.
was like very chilling. That was like super creepy as well. Like that was. Sorry, did I take your point?
No, it's fine. It's fine.
No, yeah, no, just like all of that was just like done really well, and you kind of like were just like creeped out by like the whole thing of it as well, and like it just seemed like so sinister, like what was going on, and like all like the scheming that she was doing on like Paul. It was just
And I thought that was also really well done because in the books they spend 2 years at the siege, and the sister is born during that time, but she is born with a fully formed intellect. So you have a 3-year-old running around giving orders and talking like an adult, and she's the one who kills the Baron in the end, which never was going to work. And I thought this was one of those changes that really worked really well because there's this ominous presence, right? There's something like it's almost like the embodiment of foreshadowing kind of thing, right? Because we kind of see what's coming once she is born, kind of more or less, right?
Yeah. And it's like very chilling as well, like when Lady Jessica was speaking, and you don't know whether it's her or whether it's the the fetus inside her that's like speaking to Paul in the scenes as well. It's just like
And she's a character, she's a character we don't see, who don't has a voice, who doesn't have a personality, yet we know who she is.
Yeah.
One thing about the mother that I loved was her transitioning as well, especially when she did the whole scary voice. I was like, God damn, this woman is scary as hell. You just don't know when it's gonna come out, but it's coming. And when it comes out,
and she uses it more and more throughout the story, right?
Yeah, you can see it because she used it.
She also uses it at points where she doesn't have to.
Exactly.
At one point, she's in a hurry and history is waiting, so she's gonna use the voice to get the guy to obey.
But this one,
like half a movie earlier, she wouldn't have done that.
Exactly. So you felt the development in her character from turning into protagonist to an antagonist. Like it's just, bro. The makers behind this kind of falls into my last thoughts, but we're not in last thoughts yet. But I'm just gonna ask this as just a question. Forget the last thought thing. Okay. So the people behind this film, the director's leaving after the third part. What do you like? Because the vision that he had for this executed amazingly. Okay, cool. We had the novels to help him find, but like you said, I think people said this film is a film that no one thought could be adapted, and he executed that well. So, is after part 3, are we expecting it to go downhill? Should they stop after part 3?
I'm really interested to see how part 3 goes over with the general audience because it's a very different kind of story. It's basically a palace intrigue. There's no big battles. There's no big actions. There's some action, but not a lot. And that's where the story starts to get weird. Like the first book is very different from the books that come after it. So I kind of trust Villeneuve at this point to have a plan for book 2. And it's not like he's the only person in the entire industry who could do this, right? Like there's other competent directors out there who could continue the story, and even if it's only half as good, it would still be really good, right? But I'm a little bit afraid that they start turning this into a cash cow, and they just keep running it into the ground, and that will retroactively tarnish like the first couple of movies. I really like I said earlier, I really would like them to adapt all 6 books and get all the way to the end. Of the main story. There's more books after that, but there's like 6 books that are kind of the main story. But I don't trust anybody else to do it.
This could very much go the way of Star Wars from the original trilogy to the prequel trilogy, and you kind of hope that they can maybe do a little bit more of a removed story from the main Paul Atreides like arc that they're doing at the moment, just because. And I know there's so much more that we need to explore in the Dune universe, and I'm like so on board. Like I'm very on board with getting a lot more out of this universe. I know like the main focus has been Arrakis and stuff like that, but then there's other houses, other families. It's like it seems like there's other stories to tell, whether it's book 4, 5, 6, or like, whether you know a director or a writer can like look at the world of Dune and pull a good story out of it, or like set something like hundreds of years in the future or like in the past or whatever like that. I know we're getting the Bene Gesserit sort of TV series that's coming out towards the end.
I was going to say.
Pardon?
I was going to mention that.
Yeah. So we're getting that at the end of the year. So me personally, as someone that's a convert, and again, like it's not like we're getting amazing sci-fi movies and excellent world building that that we get in Dune. So I would love for it to continue, but again, it's just can we trust Warner Brothers to not? It's Warner Brothers that produces, right? Is it Warner Brothers? Yeah. Can we trust them to not just start pumping out just Dune related stuff for the sake of pumping out Dune related stuff because everybody loves it? I don't really trust them.
And even with the Bene Gesserit show, I'm really skeptical of anybody being able to write those characters in a way that really does them justice. In terms of like all they are, like you have to have really careful plotting and really sophisticated writing in order to really convey what these people are about, and actually have them come across in ways that live up to that concept. And it smells a bit like a Disney Plus show kind of thing, like in terms of what mentality went into it. And I really hope they have a plan for that, and I really hope they do something that lives up to that. I'm just skeptical.
If the show was coming from HBO, I'd have a lot more faith in it, because HBO take the time with their TV series and generally tell good stories and like are very well thought out. Warner Brothers, again, I don't have too much faith in what
it's more like the Bene Gesserit are the kinds of characters that work really well in one story that you've constructed to work this way, and to essentially have them appear every once in a while and say something ominous, and then the camera cuts away to somebody else. Like if we have an entire show, like that whole sequence with Lady Fenring, where she basically controls Fate Ratha, like that is something you have to be very deliberate about how you do this. And I don't know that anybody can keep this up for 10 episodes or whatever.
Yeah.
Even with the best intentions, even with a good plan, it's a bit like writing a conspiracy theory. You kind of have to construct it from start to finish and really plot it really intricately. Otherwise, it kind of falls apart and kind of becomes a parody of itself. And I really, really don't want that to be that.
But I don't think they've released any statements or articles.
He says he's almost done with the script, but he wants to do something else first, just kind of as a palate cleanser, and then do it. So I would expect maybe 4 years. That's probably where we can expect part 3.
Okay.
It's too long.
Yeah. But I'd rather he get it right and we get this I like a trilogy of movies out of it that stands the test of time and that holds together as a whole, as opposed to just, hey, this made money, make one more. Yeah, and I'm happy. I'd like one next year, right? But I'd much rather have something that holds up as opposed to something that comes out sooner and is forgettable because it doesn't live up to the standard. This is set an almost impossible standard. Like we haven't even really talked. Like we've scratched the surface. Like this movie just has like probably the most disciplined writing I've seen in a long time in terms of every word and every line and every scene serves a purpose. It drives the story forward. And there's no fat. There's no, even though it's almost 3 hours long, it feels very focused and feels very deliberate. And it feels like they cut like there's this saying in writing that you should kill your darlings, right? Like that you should cut ideas if they don't belong, even no matter how good they are. Villeneuve really took a chainsaw to his darlings in this movie. Like I imagine they're like in the first drafts had much more stuff in it, and then he just cut stuff, like cut anything that didn't belong or that didn't further this core story. Even though there are a bunch of things I would have liked to have seen, but the more I think about, like almost all of them, I kind of agree with, yeah, that would have only diluted the movie. And as it stands, it's just like a roller coaster that just doesn't stop for 3 hours.
I agree. Like the script just felt it felt like something that was missing. Like I said, we've seen so many caca movies for the past couple of years. It just felt so refreshing. Like
this is what happens when smart people make movies and they have a plan.
Yeah.
This is why you have a script before you shoot. I mean, really, like I think almost all of the movies we've reviewed in the last 3 months could have worked if the story had been better.
Mhm.
Right? There's very few ideas that are irredeemable. This is really like this movie cost less. What was the Disney Plus show? Was it Secret Invasion?
Secret Invasion, yeah.
Yeah, this was cheaper than Secret Invasion.
Yeah. It's
Insane.
crazy. I think this one
Think
Dune
about
was
that for a second.
Insane.
Crazy.
For the visuals we got in this alone, that's insane.
Crazy.
Yeah. So just as a story and as an exercise in storytelling, it's great. And I imagine like we've already dug up like little details and like foreshadowing and setup and symbolism and all sorts of things that are really subtle and really woven into the story, and you don't even notice they're there. Like you could write like a college paper about just the Harkonnen arena and how it's symbolizing like Feyd-Rautha's arc in relation to Arrakis and like stuff like that. And there's just every detail is deliberate, and there's nothing in there that's like one thing that really struck me was how short the action scenes are.
Yeah.
Most of the fight scenes are just somebody walks up to somebody, 3 parries and stab, and it's over. And the longest one is probably the attack on the Emperor's compound, right? At the very end.
Yeah.
And that's 5 minutes, maybe? Like the attack itself is maybe 5 minutes.
Yeah.
That felt like it was over quite quickly as well, to be honest.
Yeah. But not like rushed, like it didn't feel
Oh,
inappropriate. In a lesser movie, this would have been 20 minutes.
Mhm.
Right?
It would have been Avengers flying around, killing a bunch of useless people for no reason.
Yeah, and it would I have this kind of thing often with action scenes where they start off interesting and then kind of get boring very quickly, because they've made their point, and it's interesting to have like an action director. I think most of the movies he's made have been action movies. Who doesn't seem to like action? He seems to think it's boring, and I kind of agree with him. All the action scenes have not only further the story, but they also are as long as they need to be to make their point, and then it's over. Like the scene with the Harvester, right, where there's this gunship, ornithopter, and Shani with the bazooka and stuff like that. I think that was longer than the attack on the Emperor. That
scene was one of my favorites as well. I forgot to even mention that one, but yeah. So carry on. Sorry.
I was just going it's like there's only a couple of them, and they are as long as they need to be, and not 1 second longer. And that was really refreshing, where there's no 20-minute CGI spectacle that just goes on and on forever and just repeats itself several times and could have been 3 times shorter. And because of that, they have more impact. Every scene has its own character. Like that scene at the very beginning with the Harkonnen troops being ambushed by the Fremen, where they kind of have their anti-gravity suits and they go up the cliff, and then they're in exposed ground and they just get shot down, and Paul and Jessica are at the base of the cliffs, and just every 5 seconds a Harkonnen drops.
Yeah, that was amazing. That was in the beginning, so I'm like, oh crap.
And that was the first scene, right?
Yeah.
And I think that was the only time where the Harkonnens were threatening, but they really were threatening in that situation.
That whole scene was like, it just felt unreal as well. It's like, as soon as they started floating up to the rocks, I was like, I'm here. I was like, I'm here, I'm present. This is like just so wonderfully shot.
And the simplicity of their surprise attacks when they're hiding in the sand felt very, like I said, very simple, but it just felt like it didn't feel simple, but it was simple. Like they're hiding in the sun and they just pop up. It was like, what the hell? This is amazing. Whoa, man. This movie was great. It was the best experience. I think I'm gonna watch it.
It genuinely is a masterpiece. Honestly, the best movie I've seen in years.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that it's getting the kind of attention it really deserves.
I'm gonna watch part 1 again. I'm gonna watch part 2 this weekend, hopefully.
Yeah, I was gonna say you probably need to rewatch part 1. I was gonna say that just so you can kind of get the full story. And I'd actually love to do a full marathon of like part 1 and part 2. Just like
I feel like reading the novels now as well, just to see. Which one's the last one you said? The 6th one.
The 6th one is called Emperor of Dune.
And does it have a resolution or? So
kind of. It's basically the last one that the author wrote.
Okay.
And then there were plans for more, but basically that's where kind of you could call that the main story or the end of the main story.
Okay, cool. Guys, is it safe for me to say last thoughts, or does anyone have anything else?
I mean, I could go for another few hours, but I think we've made our point.
All right, well, guys,
we haven't even talked about how Jessica's robes start looking more and more like a Bene Gesserit outfit,
Yeah.
to the point where she just looks like one at the end. That was great. Her descent into kind of villainy is wonderful.
Yeah, 100%.
What else? Yeah, I mean, we started off talking about the weak parts, and I think there are a few. But overall, like Villeneuve really said, okay, this is the story I want to tell. I'm going to cut everything that is not related to that, and I'm going to make sure that this works, and it does work. I just wish they hadn't undermined the whole holding the spies hostage thing in the end. Everything else is great. I genuinely think it might be the best movie, one of the best movies I've seen at all, or like in anything, just because it's that focused and that polished, and like it has no dead moments, it has no bloat, it tells a very complex and out there and esoteric story in a way I thought that really made sense and really brought its key concepts across. And the things that are really important are hammered home over and over again. Villeneuve set out to do something and he accomplished it. And he gets all the credit.
What would you rate him?
Disagree.
What would you rate? Daniel, what would you rate the film?
I give it a Kvisatz-Haderach out of Shai-Hulud.
Entschuldigung? What's going on? What the hell did you just say, bro? Please translate for people.
Do I need to say anymore?
Jump in the comment what the hell you just said. but okay. Do you have anything else you got to add, Daniel, or should we go to Hervé?
No, I think I've said my piece.
Hervé, last thoughts and rating.
This is as near a perfect movie as you can probably make, to be honest. Like, literally everything about it was wonderful. Genuinely, I've never, but it's been a very long time since I felt such excitement coming out of the cinema after watching a movie. Like, just literally, like, the performances were fantastic. Just like the story behind it was exciting. The world building, just like, I don't know, man. Please, like, transport me to Dune right now. I would love to live there, man. That is it's just, I'm a believer. I can't believe I'm saying it. Like, I'm actually like now a bit of a fanboy of like the Dune universe. Like, it's crazy. Like, I'm a convert. I'm a believer. I'm definitely gonna get the books. I'm definitely gonna check that out as well. Yeah, no, this is a 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10.
It's a 10 out of 10.
Oh crap! Wow.
This is 10 out of 10.
Okay.
It doesn't need perfect to be 10 out of 10. It's a 10 out of 10.
Okay. For me, I don't have much to say besides I have been converted. I agree with and I finally understand what the hype was about. And I think this is a film which will be universally loved. Like Daniel and Hervé were saying, this is definitely, it might be, because I didn't want to say it was the best film I've ever seen because there's different genres and there's different movies that I've liked, and obviously they all give you different feelings and just different things that you like about them. But this one, if I did do like, my favorite movies of all time, it would be top 3. I just don't know where on that top 3 would be, but yeah, I just didn't know I would experience one of my favorite movies of all time, in my 20s. Honestly, I thought maybe because the way that the film was going, the route that was going, it wasn't looking good, honestly. You know what I'm saying? And obviously, the movies I used to watch back in the day, I can't fully remember it because I was young in it. So I'm like, 27 now. So the good movies came out, like I said, 2010 era, the whole before that. So yeah, I didn't think a film like this would come out during my 20s, probably 30s, 40s, maybe. But yeah, I've definitely been converted, and this, I have to have a deep think, but this is definitely top 3 or top 3 movies of all time, any genre, every genre. This is definitely top 3. I just don't know where on that list. I'm giving this a 9.5. And the reason why I don't want to say this is a 10 is because of my dislikes. It wouldn't really make sense for me to give it a perfect score, because even though like the dislikes doesn't outweigh nothing, it's just like a fragment of disappointment, that's all. But still, for it to be a 10 for me, everything has to be perfect. And that's just the only thing for me that I was lacking. Even though Daniel did mention the point that he mentioned, which I do agree with, like, okay, that opened my eyes a bit. Still, I just think, I'll give it a 9.5. 9.5. Maybe if I watch it a second time, maybe if I watch Dune Part 1 and then I watch Dune 2 again, maybe things will change. Obviously, after today's discussion, I'll spot more nuances, and that might go up. But for now, I'll give it a 9.5 out of 10. Top 3 movie film of all time.
This just shows what you can produce when you actually put in like some love and care into the work that you're providing, and you're not just shitting out movies for the sake of needing to like send something to the box office. Again, this is like, there was a story here that Denis Villeneuve wanted to tell, like Daniel mentioned, like he's picked out the key themes or the key story he wanted to tell from the books, and he's executed it masterfully. And then everyone that's worked on this film, from like the set designers, costume designers, like everyone that's like added a little piece here and there to make this movie perfect, has just done a phenomenal job. And this is what happens when you take care. And I hope it reaps the rewards. I hope it hits the $1 billion club. Like, this is like, I hope it gets all the awards as well, because we need more movies like this. This needs to be rewarded. Like, this needs to be, this needs to be rewarded for what it is, essentially.
Yeah, 100%. All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed this discussion, because I know I have, and I'm pretty sure the other two have, especially Daniel. This is the most you'll see Daniel smile in this journey. I'm telling you, it's the most that you'll see him smile. Well, yeah, guys.
I was worried because of the comments I saw online about people not liking the adaptation. I was worried because I know Daniel had question marks of how
I think if you're a real purist, then you're gonna have stuff to complain about. But for me, it's more along the lines of things I would have liked to have seen. I really would have look up like the Guild Navigators just from other versions. Just go on Google image and look up Dune Guild Navigator, and then imagine what Villeneuve's version would have looked like, for example. But at the same time, if I have to think, okay, what do I cut in this movie to make room for a guild scene? Like, there could have been. Let's not go into the details. But point is, almost all of the things that people complain about what's missing, what's been cut, almost all of it, I kind of at some point have to agree, it was probably a good idea. And we've gone about the points where I think otherwise.
Guys, hopefully enjoyed today's discussion. Next week, what will we be reacting to, guys?
Imaginary. Horror movie about an imaginary friend who's not imaginary and not a friend.
Cool. Good description. Well, all right, guys. Make sure you're on the lookout for that. Hervé, please.
If you love Dune as much as we do, please like, share, and subscribe. If you're a book purist and you hated everything that Denis Villeneuve did, also like, share, and subscribe.
All right, guys. Well, yeah, guys. Thank you. We will catch you next week. And yeah, au revoir.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.